Welcome to Coffee with Kupke, a production of St. Paul Inside the Walls. Here on Coffee with Kupke, we grab a cup of coffee, at least we're claiming this is coffee. We sit with Monsignor Raymond Kupke, the pastor of St. Anthony's in Hawthorne, professor at Immaculate Conception Seminary, diocesan archivist. We sit with Monsignor Kupke to delve into the history of Catholicism in the Diocese of Paterson. My name is Father Paul Manning. I am the vicar for Evangelization for the Diocese of Paterson. And here I am with Monsignor Kupke. So grab your cup of coffee and let's jump right in. I'm going to take a sip.
So somehow our Germans up in North Jersey, our iron miners, somehow connected to one of the priests in Philadelphia. There were two there, an English-speaking and a German-speaking.
And I think I know the name of one of them. I think this is what we're getting to. And it's a name that we should know, right? In American Catholic history, and certainly in New Jersey history. So
Ferdinand Farmer.
And I have to interject here, especially if there are any young priests who are watching or listening. One thing I regret not doing, which is something I think you have done, is keeping a record, a personal record of baptisms and marriages, because at this point I've done hundreds of those.
Sure.
And I kind of wish now that I had kept track of them all. Do you?
I have.
All right. So what registers do you have personal?
The number?
No. What do you have books for each?
I just when I was newly ordained, I bought a ledger, one of those things, just a simple.
And so what have you kept track of?
Baptisms and weddings.
Yeah. So like this is not an archivist at heart, right? So. Interesting. Yeah. So someday, those will be in the archives. Yeah.
Farmer's sacramental records have been published 2 or 3 times. So I always worked over the printed, versions of them.
Yeah.
But one day, about 5 years ago, I said to myself, you've never actually seen the real thing.
Okay.
So I carted myself down one summer day to St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. In their archives, they have Farmer's records. And so I went down there and just had them in my hot little hands there for, it was very difficult. There were a couple of questions. It was interesting what I did not know about the records because I had never seen the original.
Yeah, so what would be an example?
I always envisioned, you and I know what sacramental registers look like today.
Yeah.
They're about this tall. And
So
in my mind, in my mind, I figured that he couldn't possibly be carting these things around, that he must have had written scraps of paper, as he's baptizing and marrying these couples up in North Jersey. And then when he got back to Philadelphia, he would
record them, yeah.
But then when I actually got, his register's only this size.
Okay.
Perfectly fit in a saddlebag.
Wow.
And obviously, these things traveled with him up into New Jersey. So I'm sitting there with the book in front of me on the table, and I'm... this is really stupid, but it was a hot summer day, and I'm talking to the book.
Yeah.
Would you like to come home with me? I had at one point I was practically sitting on my hands because not only would it fit perfectly into Farmer's saddlebag, it also would have fit perfectly into my book that I had there. And I
see even priests encounter temptation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank goodness. He didn't do anything rash.
It was interesting, archival boxes are ordinarily either gray or light buff.
Okay.
For some reason known only to God, the one that Farmer's book in is ruby red. You could pick it out on a shelf without any problem.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's good a shape now as it was 250 years ago.
Do we have any written anything from Farmer in our archives?
No.
Oh, too bad.
No.
Yeah. Maybe you should have. No, never mind. I didn't say that.
I did say, would you loan this for an exhibit, in North Jersey? And they said,
no, it might not come back.
They kind of looked at me with suspicion, I think.
All right, so we have Farmer going over the Phillipsburg Bridge or on ferry, and what year is this?
The first visit by Farmer was in 1765.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
we know,
quickly. Yeah.
Based on that, we pretty much know when the first Mass was celebrated in what is today the Paterson Diocese, because we know the dates that Farmer was up here.
And so the first Mass was?
I think it would have been like October 26th or something in 1765. Yeah.
And where?
In
someone's
Ringwood,
house?
in Ringwood.
Yeah. But it was
basically the area today that is part of Ringwood State Park. That was where the iron mining. But each year that Farmer came twice a year, every spring and every fall for 20-some years. He only missed once when the British blockaded Philadelphia during the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
So we know, he would expand his visit each year. There would be different mining camps that he would visit. So he mentions a lot of places like Long Pond, which today is Greenwood Lake.
Okay.
He mentions Charlottenburg, which is now at the bottom of the reservoir by that name on Route 23.
Yeah.
He mentions Wawayanda.
Okay. There's
There's State Park and a
yeah.
forge up there,
Yeah. Yeah. But is he celebrating the sacraments in homes or
Yes.
outdoors or
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Yeah.
And he's just pulling up with his horse and unpacking and.
Well, at that point, he was a known figure,
So people would put him up for a while?
Right, visiting twice a year. We have some letters. We don't have them in our archives, but Philadelphia does. A couple of letters of Farmer in which he mentions this. For example, he is paying a bill to some German merchant, some German religious goods merchants for holy cards and pictures, and he owes them, I forget how much money, and he mentions that, he can't get any money out of the people of West Milford because they have no money.
Okay.
So he has to provide all this gratis,
Yeah. And how many years does his twice annual visit?
Well, he starts in 1765, and he dies in 1786. So we're talking about 21 years.
Wow.
And he went right to the end. It's interesting, there were always two priests in Philadelphia, and there is no record of the other one ever getting on a horse and going anywhere.
Yeah.
But he does mention the other one. Before Farmer's last trip, that Farmer was in no more shape to get on that horse but nonetheless he did. He wanted to get up there one more time and do his thing.
Now, do you know the details of his death?
He just died of
exhaustion.
Yeah.
Was it in Philadelphia?
In Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And he's buried in Philadelphia.
Okay. Can people visit his grave or?
More or less. He's buried under the sanctuary in Old St. Mary's Church in Philadelphia. By the time he dies, there are two churches in Philadelphia. They had built a second church a few blocks away from Old St. Joseph's to expand the mission, and he's buried under the pavement of that church.
Yeah. So how are people, what's happening with catechesis? How are people being prepared for the sacraments? Is he setting up systems for that, or is he doing that himself when he gets there?
A little bit of both. He mentions, some of the stuff we construe from his sacramental registers, but he apparently trained somebody up there to baptize in his absence in an emergency.
Wow.
Because several times in the register, the name of this gentleman comes up as the baptizer. And Farmer includes the notice that he's an intelligent man. So he must have been trained, commissioned, whatever, by Farmer. This is really the beginning of lay ministry in the Diocese of Paterson. Is this
the vir? What do they call it? A vir probatus or something?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I lost my train of thought.
And also trained them to say the rosary every Sunday in his absence.
I was going to ask, do we know the gentleman's name?
Nicholas Stalter.
Okay. Stalter.
Yeah.
And Nicholas Stalter, do we know any more about him?
No.
Are all these records in Latin?
All of these records are in Latin, yes. Okay. Yeah. And even down to, if you picked up the records without any knowledge whatsoever, you would think that he was operating in North Carolina because he abbreviates in each of them NC after the name of the village.
Oh.
But it's Latin. It's Neo-Caesarea, New Jersey in Latin.
Oh, okay. Say that again.
Neo-Caesarea.
New Jersey. Wow.
So, he's doing his thing up there, baptizing and marrying, and you can trace some of the families are still up there. There are a number of families that still are located in that area. Back in 1986, when we were still producing a diocesan directory, I should have brought it with me today. We took a photo of the last page of Farmer's Register and then went up to West Milford and took a photo of a family up there that were the descendants of the last baby that Farmer baptized.
Wow, and matched them.
Yeah, and they're still parishioners up there at St. Joseph. So there are still amazing connections. Yeah.
Well, we actually will be able to put photos up when we kind of release the podcast, so we can get that. I think yes, yeah. Is it Farmer for these 20 years doing it all alone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when does I don't want to, maybe we should save this topic, but I just, before we leave Father Farmer, is there anything that people really, and some last things that people really ought to know about him?
He bought into the American dream. He was a noted person in Philadelphia at the time because of his university education in Germany. So he is the first priest to hold public office in the United States of America because he was appointed a trustee by virtue of his position as the senior Catholic clergyman in Philadelphia. He is on the original board of trustees of the University of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And, apparently belonged to several societies in Philadelphia of a philosophical and educational nature. He was a noted person in the Philadelphia scene of the time. And refused to serve as a chaplain to the British Army.
Oh, okay. Well, every Irishman is very happy with him now.
Right.
So Just three final questions on Father Farmer. Do you know much about his temperament? Is it? Can you figure anything out about that? Like his style of ministry, the way he related to people?
Can only detect from the baptismal registers and the wedding registers that he must have been a very open character. He would have been at home with us today with what we sometimes encounter, because his ministry is extended to other minors, French and Irish. He mentions a couple of converts in his registers. He was dealing with baptizing children that were teenagers by the time they finally found a priest to baptize them. So it was a very diverse kind of ministry, more so than we would think today, I think.
Any sense of his preaching or written, talks that he gave? Are there any records of that?
Not so much directly from him. We have one or two. Georgetown University in Washington has a collection of American Catholic sermons on the English mission, the Maryland mission, in the 1700s and late 1600s. I think there might be two of them down there from him, but a whole rafter from his contemporaries. So we know what their preaching was like in that period.
So the last question about Father Farmer is, it sounds to me like this must have been a holy man, a zealous man.
Yeah.
So have the Jesuits ever considered
as far as I
opening
know,
a case for canonization?
As far as I know, no one has ever pushed him for beatification. They should.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Because he's remarkable. I tell people that in 1987, when our diocese celebrated its 50th anniversary, I tried to get Farmer's successor today, or then I should say, the pastor of Old St. Joseph's, to come up to our diocese for the Mission Sunday.
Okay.
Kind of making a connection between the first evangelizer and I couldn't budge him.
It sounds like Father Farmer's partner.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, when he said to me, "You want me to come up to Jersey on a Sunday afternoon?" And
he doesn't know that New Jersey's the most blessed state in the Union,
right? And I'm saying to him, I said, "But your predecessor did it,
on horseback."
And, he just thought I was nuts. He thought I was crazy. But but I went down there. They had a symposium later on for the 275th anniversary of the Jesuit presence in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So this was jointly sponsored by St. Joseph's University, St. Joseph's Academy, St. Joseph's Prep, the high school, and Old St. Joseph's Parish, all of whom have the same roots.
It would have been nice if he reciprocated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I went down there and gave a talk at that about
Father Farmer,
about the Philadelphia Jesuit Catholic extension into New Jersey.
Okay. So before we leave this, one last thing. I don't know enough about the Native American history, but is Father Farmer encountering any Native Americans at this point?
No, by that point, they're pretty much gone.
Okay.
He does,
so however, it would be the Lenni Lenape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does, however, baptize at least one African American.
Okay. A slave?
A slave, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna leave this here. I just want to mention that we will be talking about many, many other topics, some of which are contained in Living Stones, some of which are not. one of the episodes I'm really looking forward to is Weird Diocese of Paterson. So you've probably heard of Weird New Jersey. I asked Monsignor Kupke if there was enough to do an episode on Weird Diocese of Paterson, and I think he told me there's more than enough, and we could probably do a couple of episodes. So I want to thank you for this initial conversation, and I want to just tell our listeners and our viewers that you can keep an eye out for the next episode of Coffee with Kupke, an eye out or an ear out. In order to stay on top of news releases, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you are on YouTube, please do drop a like and hit the bell for notifications. While you're at it, make sure to check out the other shows produced by the Diocese of Paterson. Those shows are Beyond the Beacon, hosted by Bishop Kevin Sweeney and Jay Agnish, our communications director. The Paul Street Journal, hosted by Brian Hansberger and Freddie Garcia. Father Ray, any last words?
We should all be so lucky to meet Father Farmer.
Amen. Amen. Well, someday we will.
Someday we will.
Yeah. I want to give a special thanks to Joe Ginexi, who is our sound and visual engineer. I guess I don't know if that's the proper terminology. Caitlin Ferrari, who's part of the production team, especially with the editing and a lot of the prep work. Freddie Garcia, who is also helping with this podcast in addition to his own. With all that said, I want to thank you for all listening to Coffee with Kupke. Keep making Catholic history in the Diocese of Paterson. We'll see you next time.